I always wanted to be a writer, and I did like I think all writers have to do. Nobody will hire them on their word, so I went into a room and started writing scripts on spec scripts. Well, a spec script is one that you're not paid to write, that you write out of love and the hope that someone will love it enough to pay you a lot for it. It is the most daring, free and exciting form of writing you can do in Hollywood. And action! My father had been in this business. He was the producer of The Wild Bunch, and I knew this business. And movies had always attracted me tremendously. I was working on a science fiction project, and the science fiction project had a spaceship that was uncovered. I finally decided it was very unsophisticated for any alien culture to come here in what I would describe as a big tin can. And I realized that they would come by information and that they would send a message. And then I decided that if you wanted a story, what would be exciting is that in some way the message could talk to you. So the message would be instructions to make something that could speak to you. And as I wasn't very fond of machines at that time, I wanted it to be something biological. And I decided that they would send you instructions to make a creature. And they would want to send you instructions to make a creature that would survive in your environment. So it would probably need your DNA to have all the equipment to survive on whatever the environment of the people who received the message. And this idea and this treatment I originally had was called The Message. I spent a tremendous amount of time with scientists at UCLA researching and also researching them as characters. I spent a lot of time in an organization called CECL, which is a organization at UCLA of tremendously significant scientists that have an interest in the evolution and origin of life and the universe. I talked to people at SETI. I made some calls to them, and I think everyone was incredibly receptive. And they found the ideas intriguing and legitimate. I also went down to the Human Genome Project down at the Salk Institute, where people were working on one of the chromosomes. And I talked to them about how the genetics would work, and they talked to me about what they could already do genetically to create new creatures. I think the final result of the movie in some ways disappointed them, but my conversations and their enthusiasm for the ideas we shared and was strong and interesting. One of the great things about our scientific community is they share their information freely with everybody. I mean, that's one of the things about the Human Genome Project that was so terrific. They share the information with everybody, and that's how we've built such a body of science.
You say Christian.
Well, I went around town, and I pitched this idea for quite a while. I submitted it, and it became very popular. 5 studios tried to buy it, or made offers to buy it. And of those offers, I chose MGM. It's a very exciting time when you participate in a script auction. The process is a very quick auction, competitive process in which the writer has a great deal of control. He owns the material and it's his choice where to take it. Instead of asking for a job, he's being asked for his material. And it's always nicer to be asked than to be asking. I was one of the producers, which is part of the control you get with a spec script that when you're just hired, you most likely would not get. It's a very political event, making a film. You're always asked to make changes. Everybody has ideas. Everybody has their favorite ideas. There are a lot of alliances. There are a lot of alliances break up. When people agree with you, you tend to move right over to their side of the room and try to win the argument with them. And when they disagree with you, you move to the other side of the room and find somebody else to try to defeat their argument. You always miss scenes you wrote, ideas you had, dialogue you had, that You spend virtually years putting together this construction, this design for a movie. These words that are an impassioned kind of letter about how to dramatize these ideas, to dramatize these emotions, to dramatize these images, and you shed tears over every image you lose. You rejoice at some of the images you gain. You realize there's some compromises in life and you're not going to get everything you want. Even if you had complete control, you wouldn't get everything you wanted. There's something I very much like about the movie and something that's in there and I would have liked to see expanded, where Marg and Michael Madsen are talking about maybe we're weeds in the universe and something was sent to pull us up and uproot us.
She would make one excellent biological weapon. If someone out there thought we were some kind of galactic weed that was going to spread through the universe.
And that is a kind of idea about what is our place in the universe and how would another civilization or species see us. Maybe we're not just a potential friend. Maybe we're a competitor. Maybe we're a resource. And the other idea that I liked very much that I would have liked to have seen emphasized is Natasha has this existential situation. She doesn't know where she came. She doesn't know why she's here. She doesn't know really except instinctually what she's supposed to do. What it appears she's supposed to do is to outbreed us, to create a new species on Earth that just outbreeds us.
Where's a good place to find a man?
When we first saw the film, it had some problems with its ending, and those were reshot a couple or 3 times. The original script worked more on a love triangle in which the hero, Syl, and Marg were in a love triangle, and therefore it was a competition for the male, which is themed to the movie to some extent, that a female comes here and has to compete to find the superior mate. That ending was more bittersweet and involved some things that people thought was not the best solution, although I liked it. In consequence, we searched more for the ending, and the ending needed to be full, and the ending needed to be adequate. And so we wrote an ending in which there was a child. A child is actually born. In the initial script, no child was born. And I came up with this idea that it ate the rat, which was an indication that it was, again, looked innocent, but was incredibly dangerous. It was the predator, not the prey. When I saw the film, I, of course, mourned for the things I had lost and rejoiced in the things that I had succeeded in and gained. This is why I'm willing to write spec scripts and take the risk, is because you go on a quest to find the answers to some of your life questions. And when you at the end succeed, sometimes you decide you're still undecided, but sometimes you resolve some of your understandings and issues. And I learned a lot about mating, sexuality, biology, and my place in the life cycle and reproduction cycle from species. And in consequence, I carry the success of that quest with me, and it answers questions for me. It brings up new questions, and I look back on it and think about it. And that is what I see a movie, a screenplay, a book. They're a mechanism, a machine for thinking and feeling and experiencing.
story revolves around a message that gets received from another world.
I think I was attracted to the whole SETI project. You know, the SETI project is a project, I believe, that's still ongoing, which was search for extraterrestrial intelligence.
Anybody looking through a telescope at night really is automatically humbled. And we are seeing but a glimpse of what is there.
I was working on a science fiction project, and the science fiction project had a spaceship that was uncovered. It seemed to me unlikely that a spaceship could actually come here. I heard in some kind of scientific report that the distances were so amazing and phenomenal between the galaxies, between the stars, that you couldn't have a spaceship. So I wondered how we might have someday have contact. And I realized that they would come by information, and that they would send a message.
The concept being a large idea of, you know, a strand of alien DNA getting received via some satellite message and having us combine it with an aspect of our own DNA.
It's not truly an alien. It's based on some information that they got from a transmission that was sent to Arecibo, and they created it based on how to renovate our own DNA to create a combination that will be theirs.
And they would want to send you instructions to make a creature that would survive in your environment. So it would probably need your DNA to have all the equipment to survive on whatever the environment of the people who received the message. So that's kind of a genesis of the idea for this movie.
When you embark on a science fiction film, you're playing with colossal ideas. You're juggling boulders.
When this project came along, my own sort of interest in science and science fiction sort of collided, and I said yes to it.
And when here we just saw the girl.
I've always been attracted to science fiction films, but there was a particular quality to this one, I guess, that interested me, and that was that it's, I think, in my mind anyway, it's a thriller as well as a science fiction picture.
Guess we all must be here for the same reason. There's not a lot of science fiction material out there. It's not like there's a lot of science fiction scripts that are floating around that are being offered to people. I mean, I'd like to do more of it.
Stephen Arden, Harvard Anthropology Department, expert in cross-cultural behavior.
I've always been interested in kind of things in this area.
If it's done right, it can be really entertaining, and if it's done wrong, it can be horrifying.
I've never really liked science fiction. It gives me nightmares. That's probably the reason that my parents aren't going to let me see this. They'll only let me see the part that I'm in.
15, take 10.
Mark.
Wake up.
15, Delta, take 2.
Mark. Here we go. And action.
15, Foxtrot, take 2, wild, 21.
These actors have all got a great sense of timing and humour, and a very eclectic cast in a way, you know.
A couple of trains came through here around about the time she escaped.
Ben Kingsley leaves me in awe. He is remarkable. He's just classy. There's nothing more to be said. He is simply amazing.
Ben Kingsley plays the part of Fitch, who's a scientist who's created this being.
He's kind of like Dr. Frankenstein, you know. He created this problem, and now he's stuck with it.
We decided to make it female so that it would be more docile and controllable.
More docile and controllable, huh? Well, I guess you guys don't get out much. He knows what she is before we know what she is. So, he knows what we're looking for when we don't.
She's my child. She's my creation. She's my daughter. She's the woman that I have breathed life into.
His feelings are slightly ambivalent, my thinking is, because he created this thing to a large degree. and has watched it grow up, and then was given this mandate to destroy it.
The decision was made to terminate the experiment, to run more research so that we could determine what we were dealing with.
At one point, they realized that this thing is not quite what they had hoped for. In other words, they can't control what's going to happen to her. So they decide to exterminate her, just end the whole project.
And also, what I'd like, if we have the opportunity, I'd like to privately share grief with the camera, so that when Dan says it really tore you up to kill her, I can look at him and say, I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Not go into complete denial.
Yeah.
Well,
what I was sort of thinking about doing was like, you know, take you away from here, and then we take you on to sort of looking here at a monitor.
And this is very good.
And then, you know, then she breaks out.
Because Fitch has created this young woman, he senses that she is probably the most intelligent being on the planet. He therefore has to choose a conglomerate humanoid, a group of people, and try and forge them into one master intelligence to overcome her.
You created a monster with some kind of formula you got from outer space. The damn thing got away, and now you want us to hunt it down and kill it.
Michael's the kind of action hero of the team, Michael Madsen, being a Army investigator.
Well, I think he's a man of few words and very decisive actions.
Coming stakes, Mutt.
Hot gun. Fire the hole.
Second stick. Smoker.
All set. 1, 2, 3, action!
I was very happy when Roger suggested Michael Madsen. I've always liked his work.
Being involved with some of those Tarantino movies, you know, has a sort of another persona about him.
I did it for Roger because we made The Getaway together, and we had such a good collaboration that I think that he took me seriously, which I didn't realize until I got the script for Species. What am I feeling right now?
You want to believe that nothing affects you, that you're not afraid of anything.
Forrest has a special ability to feel what others feel and feel very clearly what he feels without a lot of intellectual or other kind of baggage that gets in the way.
My character, in a way, is an outcast too. Not in the group, because in the group we're all trying to work together, even though we're very separate. But in his life, because he perceives the world in a very different way than a lot of other people do. So he understands where she's coming from in some ways.
I really like Forrest Whitaker. I think he's a very talented guy, and very underestimated talent.
Her eyes are in front. Her eyes are in front so she can judge the distance to her prey.
I play a character named Laura Baker. Officially, I'm a molecular biologist. I've been brought on the team as a specialist to theorize about what, biologically, the species, Syl, what her next move might be, or why she did what she did.
And here we go, and action! Fell through the grate. Can you lift up the grate? Well,
Chris, you need to get the bolt out from under the grate.
Run through the floor!
Oh my God! I've never seen anything like this.
Come on. Bitch, let us out!
Open there!
I can't let you out till I know what's in there. Let's check the other door. Open up the door!
Chris! That's just plastic.
My character's called Dr. Arden, and he's a a Harvard professor in comparative anthropology. And he's brought into the team because of his skill in sort of working out exactly what the possible parameters are of how this species may develop.
This human life form could be a mask. If we could see it without the camouflage...
You're right. Then at least we'd know what we were dealing with.
Alfred Molina is a great actor, just brilliant. He's in fact so chameleon-like and such a good actor, he doesn't have the reputation he deserves.
Alfred Molina has gone on to do some wonderful work. And I just saw Alfred recently in London. And he looks real good, and he's a nice man, good guy.
First of all, I want some sort of bang, 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 okay, to get Mike's attention, okay? And then I want the thing to be...
This isn't a trick or anything.
The characters in the film are very distinct. Camaraderie is sort of, I think, not really what they are. I think they start off as sort of a team, but they become more adversarial in a way as the story unfolds. Except they sort of form their alliances and have a sort of grudging respect for each other, I suppose.
We go, and action.
What's happening? Kills a girl at the club, comes home with this guy, kills him.
I mean, we get to know each other quite quickly, just out of necessity, because, you know, there's something far more important than niceties or, you know, social graces or anything like that.
Did something to her. She was angry.
She'll kill anything that threatens her. She'll kill anyone that gets in her way.
Gets in her way of what?
Her life cycle. I think she's trying to mate.
I think the group gains some harmony as we start to gain respect for each other. But initially, when we first come together, I think that we were all trying to figure each other out.
May I have your attention, please? Welcome to Los Angeles, California. This is the terminal stop for the Desert Star.
And then, of course, we needed a cell. And I remember finding, you know, somebody who could look spectacular and also could act was no mean feat.
Went in, I met with casting director, and it was a process, though. Getting this film was not easy. It was a long process. It went on for months. It stretched out for a long time.
We looked at rooms full of young women who, you know, either didn't look good enough or couldn't act well enough. And then I remember we went to New York and I said, well, listen, you know, we've got to start looking at models and people like this, people who really haven't got any experience, but maybe, just maybe, we'll find somebody who has some real talent that, you know, I can take a gamble on. And along came Natasha.
Met in New York, met the casting director, they called me back. Then I was like off again for a couple months modeling somewhere, thought it went away. They called me in Italy and they said they want you to go to LA, so I flew out to LA to do a screen test. I met with Roger, I met with Frank Mancuso Jr. They were helping me before the screen test.
She was, you know, completely, you know, I don't think she'd ever done any acting, but she looked great and she really was very convincing in those first screen tests that we did.
I remember doing a screen test there. They had set up a whole stage with a hot tub and to do the scene, I guess, where I keep Whip's head under the water and stuff. So that was part of the screen test process. And I was just very out of my element, but having a good time. And there was really nothing to lose, you know. For me, it was just, I wasn't that stressed out about it. Although as it got closer to actually getting the project, I was getting more excited.
And we got her back a few times, and of course, you know, making a decision with somebody who really hasn't done anything before is never easy. But, you know, in the end, we said, yeah, she can do it.
15, take 10.
Mark.
Excuse me?
He's dying. I flew back to New York. I found out I got the movie. I decided to pack up my stuff, and that was it. That was the end of modeling for me. I'm like, yes, my out. This is where I'm going. Well, I prepared for the role, first of all, by moving to Los Angeles, because I was living in New York when I got the film. And also, just, it was kind of a different mindset in the sense that for 6 years I've been working and people have been working with me for the way that I look, and now I've got to kind of contribute something and be something and get into a character.
She's a beautiful girl and she's very talented, and I thought she was great in that part. I don't know how many girls could have got away with playing that, really. And it was one of her first roles. I mean, you know, she to get something like that right out of the box, I mean, I thought she did a pretty good job.
She could do it for a number of reasons. She could act, she looked great, and she was also prepared to, you know, face the nudity that was required for the movie. And those three things, I think, came together to, make it so that, I was more than happy to make the film with her.
They told me pretty much when I got the role that there was going to be nudity. I mean, as soon as we started negotiating the contract, that was part of it. Honestly, it didn't strike me as odd. I thought it was fitting. I mean, was she going to come out of this cocoon with clothes? I don't know. It made sense. I just remember getting the movie, and now I've got to go to the read-through, and I go into the room, and around the table sit Ben Kingsley, Alfred Molina, Michael Madsen's directly in front of me, and Mark Helgenberger, Forrest Whitaker. We're all just around the table.
Literally, I brought a cup of coffee and my hand was shaking so much, so I had to kind of like let go of all that and like really just try to work with the actors and be comfortable with that. Being my first film, it was kind of, it's a little scary,
Sound speeds. Background action. And action.
When you're working with great people and you got a good script, it is a lot of fun, and I had a great time with Roger, I really did.
We've got monsters, we've got kind of weird computer stuff, we've got kind of these extraordinary sort of effects.
You had a curve in it. Yeah. Can you put that back in? Cut, please. Open the door. And get her up.
Mistakes, Mark. Right, go. Right on.
This was a picture that I really wanted to do, and I waited for because I came out of doing science fiction pictures. I was an effects designer before I was a production designer. So I have a special love for science fiction, and I collect science fiction and comic books and stuff, and I'd really been waiting to do a big action, adventure, monster movie like this.
I think that when you start a movie, everybody has a level of expectation as to what it's supposed to look like and what it's supposed to feel like.
I like to have the production designer involved as soon as you can have him involved, because in my experience the production designer has a big impact on how a show works, and John did have a big contribution to this film.
Well, the first thing is to try and get a sense of what the picture the director wants to make. So often what I'll do is I'll look at a lot of movies the director's done before. This particular director, Rahj'iladelphia, likes Steadicam. So you think in terms of making sets that you can really move through that are very dimensional. This is not a guy who really likes static compositions. He likes to walk through things.
But maybe get them to sort of give us, if we get a little bit of sort of sideways stuff, so we see that, and then counter a little bit here to get down there, like we start to close those doors.
I like to move the camera a lot. I like to sort of make the audience feel like they're really involved in it and part of it. The moving camera is something that the audience has become very much more familiar with. They expect the camera to be taken where they want to be.
Creating things where he can really run wild. That's really been the fun of this. Then there's a matter of, do you want it to look like other science fiction movies? Do you want it to look realistic?
I keep forgetting you guys are here.
I approach my filmmaking from a sort of trying to make things as real as you can.
He felt that the effects and that the monster and the rest of those things would be much more startling if the world was a real world.
I wanted it to not feel like, you know, these were sets that were created, but to feel that they were real sets. I wanted it to feel like the movie takes place on the streets of Los Angeles.
So we've tried to make our hardware and those things seem real and seem not outlandishly futuristic.
You know, I didn't want it to feel sort of as though it happened on a movie studio.
Well, this is the classic production designer dilemma, is the job is to make things look real. You don't want to break the audience away from the experience of what they're having. From a design point of view, what was really fun to do in this were the two laboratories. We started out with a very high-tech white room with a kind of a very dark sort of cube with this the girl is inside of.
Well, in the first part of the movie, we find her in like a glass enclosure where she's being studied by scientists.
Right, everybody.
Action!
Back off. Keep further back, further back.
Well, it starts out that I'm in the glass enclosure, and these two guys hook up cyanide canisters to some kind of a funnel that flows into the enclosure, and the gas starts pouring in, and I get freaked out.
We wanted a laboratory that felt like something that could be real, that could be, that's horrible and creepy because it's like an isolation chamber or almost like a diving bell that's being locked inside of it.
Right, cut and open the door and get her out. Cut, please, open the door and get her out. Thank you. Tell her cut, she can hear.
I get freaked out, break through like 3-inch thick, shatterproof glass, and kill a couple people along the way, and find myself in an open area with helicopters and guys chasing me and shooting me.
So that from that point on, she becomes a hell of a lot more aggressive because she becomes, you know, a survivor, and not knowing what the hell's going on with her, she finds herself on her own.
And action!
The running wasn't so as exhausting as sitting in a makeup chair for 4 hours getting the fat face on was. That was probably the toughest part of the whole movie, but I really enjoyed it because I'd never done anything with special effects like that before.
3 tail markers.
Rolling.
Dead marks. Marks.
Here we go, action. Stop a minute. Like that. Just put along the lenses. I think
That was great. That was great on this side. That side, you guys were still being pansies.
I get cocooned and I grow up to be like, I don't know, 18 or 19, and that's when Natasha steps in.
For me, the best part of making the switch from modeling to acting is doing something every day that you're afraid of, that you fear. And for me, the next movie, 10 years later, the next movie I do, I know I show up some days and there's fear. There's new people involved, there's new actors, there's new scenes, there's new material, and there's fear, and there's, you know, pushing yourself to accomplish something, to get over those barriers.
Are you foreign? Do you speak English?
Yes.
I think that initially she learns by imitation. I think that she observes and she sees results, she sees cause and effects, and I think that she sets herself on a similar path.
Because her childhood has been in an isolated environment, she's learning as she goes.
You think about the fact of this person who's like experiencing the world for the first time, a grown adult who, like, every time they taste something it's new, every time they see something it's new, every time they touch something it's new.
Oh, she picks up various things like the credit card. She sees within, like, in a little mini mart, she sees a woman using a credit card. And then she sees on a TV commercial a girl changing her hair color. And that's where she gets the idea later on in the movie to become a brunette.
I always learn. You learn from doing. I mean, I personally learn from doing. I learn from being on the set. I learn from watching other actors. I learn from different techniques and talking to other actors. And so for me, that's where I learn the most.
However, I've got to see what the well, it matches the other shot better. But my problem is now, is she looking like the look when she chopped the thumb off?
Well, when she chopped your thumb off in this shot.
No, the close-ups I did of her.
Directors, you know, have a lot going on. So you spend a lot more time with the actors on the downtime, waiting for shots to be set up to actually, you know, get into full discussions about that kind of stuff. I'm just kidding, Mark. You treating me like shit.
You are so abusive, Tess.
Well, I mean, I guess we could. I had a feeling I'd have to look.
Oh my God!
Sabine is fresh and new, and she's looking at the world for the first time, and in the media, which is what controls a lot of the minds of the people, and we watch that control on her in her own sensory development, you know, how she learns how to relate with people of the opposite sex and how they relate. You'll be able to see the way people exchange, you know, in their relationships, and then their sexual mating habits, you know.
I think she's trying to mate, reproduce.
I was reading a book on the body, and the book said, we will spend a tremendous amount of this book and time on reproduction because that is the engine of biology. And I went, that's the right motive. That's the second half of this movie.
Roll, please.
Got it. One, Mike? Yes, we got it. Action!
We realize that she's on a process of accelerated natural selection. She's like the Darwinian theory in 2 weeks.
Cameras on the move!
This is roll 230, species of GMUA, the 19th of October, 94, 15 IPS, 2-track, 30 frames, reference -81K.
Since this is so vital to the survival of a species and an individual, that genetically it has been developed that certain species can smell unhealthy other species, even genetically unhealthy ones.
All right, maybe she rejected him. She probably has some special kind of senses. Rats can sense diseased or genetic damage in their potential mates, so we can test his body for any
hereditary diseases, any defects that would have made him a loser, essentially.
I'd say she fits the classic definition of a psychopath. Nothing to inhibit her. No moral sense, no social structure.
She wasn't exactly smothered with a mother's love or talk good manners, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what was happening. Did something to her, she was straight.
I think she mostly responds to the predatory sexual nature of man. And when they become too aggressive or sexually predatory or aren't useful to her, she acts like an animal.
I don't think that's really surprising to me. I mean, she is a woman after all. So whatever she can use, I'm sure she's going to use, you know? I don't think it's any great revelation or anything. If anything, it probably just makes her a little bit more dangerous. Because there's a lot of guys out there looking to get laid. And, you know, she's very willing. She's over there right now.
Marg has her own biological imperative to pursue in the process of this, which is a kind of mirror to Sills to a great extent. And we humans have our own biological imperative, and she and Michael do too.
Margaret? There.
Hi.
Hi. We wanted to have a romantic scene. It was good for me because I hardly ever get to do that kind of thing. I'm always the bad guy and I never get the girl. And so we both wanted to make it playful, but we wanted to make it nice. So we just kind of made it up on the spot and just kind of fooled around, and Roger let us do it. And you know, he would laugh at certain things. Should I show my butt in that scene? I get out of bed and put my pants up. That was my idea. I wanted to show my butt. They didn't show it long enough.
What's the problem, Dad? I just got this terrible feeling. I just got this strange thought. You know, I got this image of Sil on.
Here we go. Action.
This is our sewer set. A lot of this is prefabricated in the mill. All the ribs are all cut. The ribs can all be cut individually. And you don't really go on stage until you really need the stage. So you do a lot of building beforehand. One of the things that's interesting is you notice all these ropes. Again, what I talked about earlier about trying to build a set that can really be shot. This is all designed so you can pull off either side of it, and you can pull off, there's a long strip down the middle of each tube so that anything can be lifted off. This big room here opens like a picnic basket. So each those two wings can come up so that we can get light in it wherever the director wants to go. He can again really run wild in this set. The highest point you can see right here is actually a duplicate of a basement that was in the Biltmore Hotel. We ran all through the basement of the Biltmore, running wild with smoke, and we actually had to paint it down. The basement of the Biltmore is beautiful. We made it look incredibly funky and dirty, and we ended by measuring their room and duplicating it on stage here. What happens in this room is that our heroes are chasing the monster, and they go through several metal doors that she's just burst through, and they finally come down to the lowest level of the basement, and there's a manhole cover that's been flung to one side. It goes into a tiny little tube, and they have to climb down through this tube, and you can see that the tube leads you downward and then into a sort of a transverse tube. We should go inside.
Okay, let's follow you inside.
Okay, come around here. So this is our sewer. Right now our sewer's a little dry. It'll eventually in these areas we'll have about 6 inches of water, which will be dyed so that it'll be, you won't be able to see that it's no deeper than 6 inches. It'll appear to be a lot deeper. This is where our monster is blasted through this grating. We still need to do a little more work on this. Well, now that we're in the bulk of the sewer, this is, they follow a trail of bubbles in this direction down to this big room. Well, this is one of the areas that was built to take advantage of the actual pits that were already in the stage when we came here. So we contrived to make all these bends work for us so that we have the parts that are only 6 inches deep, but they flow into this area, which is much deeper. And we can have a gag here where the monster can burst out of the water and nail one of our heroes and drag him back under, and we can have any amount of action here we want.
Okay, stand by. Here we go. Shooting.
No problem.
You all ready? Shooting. Be quiet. Stand up.
We're rolling.
Speed on B.
Rolling quietly.
Here we go. And action. See that? Help him up. Hold them up. Coming through. Draw him up. Back to no sound.
Load it up again, Kenny.
The truth is, this is an utter fantasy. The sewers of LA are not this big. I mean, in this case, we're much more inspired by, say, The Third Man, you know, something like that. There are some big tunnels under Los Angeles where they say you find cars and stuff, but these are really like drainage runoffs for the river. As far as an actual sewer like this, the sewers in LA are much tighter. They do have a lot of things growing in them like this.
Okay, before we go. All right, stand by for the picture. Are we good on the oscillation, everything for you, Van Peter? Okay, can we get Ben in for water, please?
No water, beauty.
Push it back.